Well, good morning, Summit. We're kicking off a brand new series today that I think is going to be relevant to each and every one of us that is here. I believe it's going to be powerful. Believe it's going to be transformational. I believe God's got something in store for each of us in this next series. And because it's a topic that every single one of us, if we're honest, we go, this is an area I need some help in, I need some growth in. And the topic is forgiveness. And this is why I know it's so important to us. We say as Americans, 94% of us statistics-wise say that we think it's important to forgive, that should be part of our lives, forgiveness. But even though 94 think it's important, only 85% of us say, I actually know how to forgive. We didn't really learn how to do this growing up often. We don't really know how. And many of us, another 85%, they said, we need help in forgiveness. We don't really know how are we supposed to do it. We know we're supposed to, but we don't really know how to, and we don't know what it looks like because maybe we never really had it modeled well growing up, and we don't always see it modeled well in our relationships. And there was a guy that was one of the disciples of Jesus, and his name was Peter. And he was struggling with this thing called forgiveness. And he said, I think it's important, but I don't really know how, and I don't want to do it a whole lot. And so I'm going to go to Jesus. And he went to Jesus one day, and he said this to him about forgiveness. Peter asked Jesus, he said, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? He's asking this question. He knew it was important, but he said, how often? And he said, 7 times. And you know what he's saying when he's saying 7 times? Back in those days, the Pharisees and theologians would say, you are a really good person, and you really only need to forgive somebody 3 times if they've done something. And so Peter's thinking, I'm going to impress Jesus today. I'm going to take 3. I'm going to double it and add 1 and say 7. That sounds great. Jesus, 7 times? And he was expecting a star on his forehead for saying that. And Jesus looks back and goes, no. And he goes, 70 times 7. And Peter went, huh? What? And he was saying that something is even bigger than that. And Jesus wasn't, doing math problems, because Peter probably at that point was going, I didn't do so well in math. I'm not even sure what that number is. It wasn't about the number. It was about a lifestyle in that. And it was about forgiveness should be part of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. It should be part of our lives. It should be an ongoing thing. It should be the way that we live life. Right next to love as a follower of Jesus, forgiveness and grace should be there. And so what we're going to learn today is about forgiveness. And here's our big idea today. It's this, is that forgiveness is releasing someone from the debt they owe you so your heart can be free. This week, we're going to talk about releasing the debt of the hurt of somebody else. We're going to talk about that. How do we forgive others? Next week, Pastor Nate will be here, and he's going to say, how do we release the debt from ourselves? How do we forgive ourselves? And what's the goal? If you can throw that up there one more time, because what's the goal of this? We often think the goal is just to forgive someone. The truth of the matter is the ultimate goal is that so our heart can be free. Jesus is wanting to free our hearts in the middle of this. And he's saying forgiveness, when we don't forgive, our heart isn't free. And when we do forgive, when we figure out how to do this and we begin to follow Jesus, we can actually live free. And if I was asked this question, how many of us want to live more free? We all want to live more free. And the pathway is forgiveness. But the truth is, a lot of us struggle with what forgiveness actually is. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there about forgiveness. And so we're going to learn about it, and then we're going to unpack how to forgive. And so maybe just to start us off, kind of some of the misconceptions about forgiveness. I'm going to read off some statements, and they are either true or false. And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, true or false. I'm just going to want you to think in your mind when I make this statement, is this statement true or false when it comes to forgiveness? A person should not be forgiven until they ask for it. We don't have to forgive someone until they ask for it. Is that true or is that false? Just think for a second, okay? Put that in your mind. Next one, forgiveness includes minimizing the offense and the pain that is caused. If I'm going to forgive it, oh, it's not that big of a deal. No worries about it. That's fine. Forgiveness means minimizing the offense. True or false? Next one, forgiveness includes restoring trust and rebuilding a relationship with that person. If I forgive them, that means I'm going to reunite that relationship and rebuild that. True or false? Number four, you haven't really forgiven until you've forgotten the offense. True or false? Okay, here's the truth. All four of those were false. All four of those were false. So a lot of times we have misconceptions, and it holds us back from forgiveness because we think it means something that it doesn't. So let's unpack what it really is and what it is not. So when we're stepping into moments of forgiveness, we get biblically what forgiveness is. So when you look through Scripture, there's 5 different things when it comes to forgiveness that it is not. It is not conditional. That it's not based on the other person's response. It's not based on whether they ask for forgiveness or not. Remember when Jesus was hanging on the cross and they have nailed him to the cross, they are mocking him, they are spitting on him, and Jesus says these words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Was anyone asking for forgiveness in that moment? Nobody was. Jesus didn't turn to him and say, "Hey, Daddy, I'm going to forgive them when they ask, because until they ask, I don't have to." No. He said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Is forgiveness this? If someone says, well, if somebody's like, "Well, I'll forgive you if you promise to never do it again." That's not forgiveness, that's bargaining. You are trying to one-up that person and convince them to do something, and you're withholding it. Real, true forgiveness, biblical forgiveness, is unconditional. It is saying, I am deciding to do this, to let this go so that I can be free and I can move forward. First thing, it's not conditional. It's unconditional. Second thing, it's not excusing the offense. Sometimes when someone does something and they'll say, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry, it really didn't hurt that bad, it wasn't that big of a deal." No, really, you know what? Honestly, it was a big deal. And it really hurt a lot. And when you forgive someone, you do not need to minimize that. You can say, "Yes, that really hurt, that really was painful, that really, set me off when you did that. But I'm not going to hold it against you anymore." It's not minimizing it. It's not excusing it. Sometimes people will say this about other people. "Well, that's just the way he is. He's just that way. He just talks like that. That's just the way he is." As if it doesn't matter what the words they say, because that's okay because they're that way. I mean, we had a saying as a kid, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me." That is false too. Because the words we say wound people. And the words we use hurt people. And that is real. Every single one of us can remember things that someone said about us maybe when we were a kid. Do you remember those things, I wish you'll never amount to anything. Why can't you be more like your sister or your brother? You're ugly. I hate you. Words wound. And we don't minimize it. We don't say, "Well, that's just the way it is." No, we say that hurt. That was real. Forgiveness acknowledges the weight of the wound there. And it says, I'm going to let it go. But I'm not minimizing that one bit or excusing it. Third thing is this. Forgiveness is not removing the consequences from it. Sometimes, it's no big deal, let it go. Things happen and someone does something and you know what? They still have to face the music and the consequences of it. When I was a kid, Star Wars came out when I was 10 years old. So I was like right at the age, And so they had all the toys came out when I was 11. All the toys. I have all the toys. They were all the original toys. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're probably jealous because I have them all, the original. And when I was once we were at the store and I was with my parents and I'm looking at it because when you have some you want more. We wanted as many stormtroopers as were in the Death Star, and so there was one of the packages that was kind of open, and you probably never did this, but I was like, my parents were in the aisle, so I slipped it out, and then I slipped it in my pocket. And we're driving home, and I don't know, I probably was a kid, and I pulled it out in the pocket. My dad's looking in the back seat going, that toy was not, you don't go to the store with that toy. And when we got home, he said, what's in your pocket? And I pulled it out. And then I felt guilty, and I felt terrible, and I was like, I'm so sorry, Dad, I'm sorry. And he looked at me, and he said, I forgive you. And I was like, oh, Dad is great. And then he said, but you didn't steal it from me. So I'm not the one that needs to forgive you. You stole it from the store. So tomorrow we're going back up to the store and you need to return that and you need to go apologize at the store and you need to pay them for that. And there's going to be punishment the rest of the summer. It isn't removing the consequences. He forgave me, but there were still consequences that come with the action. Okay? So that's another one. Fourth one is this. Forgiveness is not the same as trust. It's not the same as trust. It's not the same as restoring the relationship. Sometimes relationships can be restored and trust can be rebuilt, but not always. Some of us are holding back forgiveness with someone because they think, if I forgive that person, then I'm going to have to get back with that person, and I'm going to have to build that relationship again with that person, and I really don't want to, so I'm not going to forgive that person. Right? Forgiveness and trust are two different things. Forgiveness has to do with what happened in the past. I'm forgiving that. I'm letting go. Trust has to do with what's going in the future. Do I trust you going forward? Will I trust your actions going forward? Are you someone that is trustworthy? Can I rely on you? Forgiveness is a decision, I'm going to let this go. Trust is something that is built over time. And sometimes when someone has done something, the consequences of it, they have broken that trust, and it's going to take time for them to rebuild it. And the person that needs to rebuild it is not the person forgiving, it's the person that has broken the trust. We've seen this in relationships where someone has maybe been abusive or dealing with substance abuse, and they're like, finally the family says, I can't handle this anymore, you need to go. You're damaging the family, you're damaging the kids, and they will come back the next day, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again, and the person says, okay, in Christ I forgive you. Well, then can't I just come back home? Can't we just be like we were? No, it's going to take time for you to build the trust again. And sometimes we miss those are two different things that we need to do in a relationship. But we need to understand that, because you can set someone free and free your heart without that going forward. So that's the next. And the next one is this: forgiveness is not forgetting what happened. We often think forgiveness and forgetting is the same thing. I was struggling with something in college, and there was a really pious Christian man that came up to me and was like, oh, this is a great book. It's called Forgive and Forget. And I was like, oh, well, I'm sure by the time I finish reading this book, I will have forgotten it. But you know what? I finished reading the book, and I had not forgotten what I struggled with forgiving with that person. And it didn't really help. The thing is that you can't intentionally forget things. I can unintentionally forget a million things. But intentionally, if you try to focus on forgetting something, have you ever tried that? I'm going to forget this, I'm going to forget this, What are you doing? You're focusing on that thing. So because you're focusing on it, you'll never forget it. And those are two different things. And we wish we could forget it. We wish we could. God gave us a mind that remembers a lot of things, and we wish we could. But Jesus is saying, Peter, there is something better than forgetting. There is replacing that hurt with freedom and letting that go so that when you think of that hurt, you don't move to the pain, you don't move to the hurt, you move to the healing. You don't move to the pain, you move to the promise of God in that moment. That you know that that I have forgiven that and God is healing that and I have let that go and that doesn't define me anymore and I'm moving forward. That I'm letting go of the pain, I'm letting go of the hurt, I'm letting go of all of that. Why? Because I want to be free. I do not want my life defined by that thing that happened in the past to me. Jesus is saying that is not who you are. This is who you are. And step into that. And you'll begin to see, Peter, that hurt through the lens of grace. And that's what he was trying to teach Peter, 70 times 7, as followers of Jesus. So how do we do this? How do we do this? We've got 4 things that will help us live it out in our lives. And the first one is this, how we forgive. And this one sounded weird when I was writing it, but the first thing is never retaliate. Because when we are hurt, when someone has offended us or said something to us or done something to us, what is our natural reaction? Retaliation, right? You hurt me, I want to hurt you. You gossiped about me, so I'm going to gossip about you. You pushed on me, so I'm going to push back on you. What the retaliation does is keeps the wound alive. It keeps the cycle going over here of hurt and hurt again. And sometimes we retaliate verbally back. Sometimes we retaliate in other ways, kind of passive-aggressive ways. My wife and I were arguing a couple of weeks ago about something in the house. She was in the living room. I was in the kitchen unloading the dish, and we got into it. And I was like, all right, if that's the way you're going to be. And I said something, and I'm unloading the dishwasher, and she's like, are you mad? I'm not mad. I'm just aggressively unloading this dishwasher. You know what that's like. You know, when the pots and pans are about like, they feel like Metallica, you know, a drummer in Metallica going on. You know, the dishes are like the WWE chairs, you know. You know, and the cabinet doors are just hanging on as best they can. I'm sure that never happens in your house. This is why, because we think forgiveness should start with warm feelings. Forgiveness starts by not responding in anger, not responding in kind. The problem when we struggle is we feel like they did something that was outside of my control, and I think I need to say something back or do something back. And Jesus is saying to Peter, that was out of your control, and the only thing you can control right now is your self-control in this moment. And I don't want you to respond in kind. I want you to respond back differently. Maybe it means taking a walk. Maybe it means stepping out. Look at what it says in Proverbs. It says it like this. Don't take it on yourself to repay a wrong. Somebody has wronged you, and I want to wrong them back, right? We want to wrong them back. And he's saying, no, don't take it on yourself. Trust the Lord, and he will make it right. This is where God is centering in. Like, I have this moment, they hurt me. I want to respond this way, but I'm going to step back, and I'm going to turn to Jesus in this moment, and I'm going to trust God in this moment. Trusting in the Lord means this, is that God sees the wrong. He sees the hurt in my heart. He knows what it's like because he walked on this earth. But he also cares about justice, and he cares about, and he can handle this thing better than I can. And what we're doing in this moment is we're in the middle of our hurt. We're inviting Jesus in. And we're saying, my natural response is to lash back. But with Jesus, I can have a supernatural response because now he's involved in my life. This used to be my natural way of responding, but now I'm responding with Jesus, and it's going to be different. And remember what we said forgiveness is releasing someone from the debt so that your heart can be free. The truth is, our pain and our hurt often creates a prison in our life. And we're holding on to it, and we're hanging on to it. And it felt good in the moment to lash back. But what we're doing is locking ourselves in a prison of bitterness, a prison of resentment, a prison of hurt. And in the end, the refusing to release that person is damaging us. So never retaliate. Jesus saying, Peter, I want you to break free from this. Second thing is to deal with it immediately. Deal with it immediately. This is what it says in Ephesians. Paul says, don't sin by nursing your grudge. Don't let the sun go down with you still angry. Get over it quickly. God made us with these incredible memories. We have this amazing memory. We can remember so many great things in our life. But we also remember all of those other things, don't we? We remember those harsh words we were just talking about. We remember that time you were bullied at school. You remember that affair that your spouse had. You remember being unfairly fired from a job and the way that was. And what happens is we have that hurt and we begin to nurse it. We begin to nurse it, you know. And what is a nurse? What's a nurse's job to do? They're there to care for, to feed. Ultimately, a nurse's job is to keep you alive, right? When you're there at the hospital. And what we're doing and what we're nursing it is we're keeping that hurt alive. We're nursing that grudge and we're keeping ourselves emotionally stuck. That wound stays open. That wound stays fresh. We're just making it worse and we're holding on instead of letting it go. And so what we need to do in these moments, he's saying you can either nurse it or you can reverse it. You know, you can back it up and reverse it. You know, okay, only a handful of people get the Missy Elliott reference in there, but you can reverse it. You can reverse it. He wants you to reverse it. We can either nurse it and hold on to it, and he's saying we need to reverse it and let it go and say, Jesus, I'm going to give this to you in this moment. And this week, I was going through this as I was praying through this message, and every time I prepare a message, I'm like, I have to sit down with Jesus and listen to him talk to me and allow him to change me. And I'm asking, is there anything that I need to let go of where I've been nursing it and not reversing it? And he brought something up from about 4 years ago in my life. And I'm not going to go into all the details of what this person did, but it was somebody that I worked with in ministry that they made some decisions, made major deception in the organization, and it affected people personally, it affected people financially. It started this chain reaction of ripple effects in the organization. There were people I loved that ended up losing their jobs because financially they didn't have it. We ended up stepping away from that place, and there were all these consequences that happened. And I was reflecting this week, and I realized I have moved on from that, but I haven't let go of that. I haven't let go of that. I was still hanging on to that hurt. I was still hanging on to that pain. I was still thinking, well, I'm justified because what they did. And it was affecting me in my life. And Jesus is saying, you need to let that go, Tim. You need to let that go. I remember a mentor saying to me years ago, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And I needed to go to that place, and it had been 4 years, and I wasn't dealing with it immediately. I needed to deal with it today. And it was a process, and I'm going to be working through it probably the next couple of weeks, just letting that one go and just spending time with Jesus and talking to him. And what he's moving us to in the next thing is to release the debt of that person. Release the debt. Forgiveness is deciding is that person doesn't owe me anymore. In Colossians, Paul said it like this, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And the story that Jesus, when he said 70 times 7, he told this parable, and it's a really long parable, so I don't have to go through all of it, but you can look it up in Matthew 18. And this is what Jesus said. He said, let me tell you a story, Peter. There was a king, and he had one of his servants, and the servant had borrowed tons and tons of money. It was in the millions. And the servant couldn't pay back that debt. And he went to the king and begged for forgiveness and mercy. And the king forgave him of this huge debt. And he was forgiven. And he didn't owe it anymore. And the debt was canceled. But then that servant had somebody else that owed him a small little amount. And so that servant went to the person that owed him a little amount and said, "You need to pay me back." And the person said, "Well, I can't pay you back." And he said, "Well, then you're going to have to go to jail." And he put that person in jail. And when the king found out, he was like, "That's not the way it should be. Don't you realize how much I have forgiven you? Now you can go and forgive them." And he was trying to show Peter that if we're going to forgive, forgiveness doesn't make any sense unless you've experienced forgiveness in your own life. Unless you had a debt to someone and you had that debt canceled. And the story Jesus is trying to get across to Peter is that I have canceled your debt, Peter. Remember when I met you when you were by the water and you said, "Get away from me, I'm a sinful man"? Remember that, Peter, when that happened and you didn't think you were worthy and you messed up along the way? And remember that time I had to say, "Get behind you, me, Satan," and all those kinds of things? Remember, I have forgiven you this much, Peter. I'm going to go to the cross to die for you. And now I want you to go forgive someone this much, because you only know that one little thing that they've done to you. And what he's trying to say to Peter is we don't forgive because someone asked for it or even that they deserve it. We do it because we have been forgiven, that we have been forgiven by Jesus. When that person in my life, they weren't asking for it, they don't even think they did any wrong. I don't think they're even repentant at this moment. Did they deserve it? No. But do I deserve his grace? No. But I am releasing them because Jesus has released me. I am forgiving them because Jesus has forgiven me this much. And I can go free, forgive this person this much. And I know some of you are thinking, "Oh, Pastor, that's easy for you. You don't know what that person did to me." That is not fair. That is not fair to let that person off the hook after what they did to me. That's just not fair. When you look at the cross, is that fair? There's nothing fair. We've got a giant "It's not fair" sign in the front of our church. It's not fair. It's not fair that Jesus went to the cross to die for our sins. It's not fair. Thank goodness it's not fair. It's called grace. It's called forgiveness. It's called love, that he came and poured this out for us, that he has forgiven me. And it wasn't fair that he forgave me, but he did. And he says, "Now I want to free you to go out." Here's what Jesus is saying. You're never going to stop hurting until you forgive that person. You will never move forward in freedom until that happens. It's letting the prisoner go and realizing you were the prisoner. I'm going to let that person off the hook because Jesus let me off the hook. And if you're struggling with forgiveness today, you need to get alone with Jesus and begin to see how much he has forgiven you. And you need to get a fresh awareness of his grace and a fresh awareness of his forgiveness. And let that wash over you. Because when you begin to experience that, you go, "Okay, I don't feel like it right now," because you don't always feel like it. I don't ever feel like forgiving anyone. But Jesus has forgiven me, and I am forgiven, so I can forgive that person. And then the last thing is this, is that because you're thinking, "Well, if I do that, it's going to pop up again, and that meant I didn't forgive them because I still sometimes hurt." And here's the fourth thing, is that it's going to pop up again because we have a memory. Continue forgiving when the hurt resurfaces. When that hurt bubbles up again and you feel that same emotion, you will remember the emotions. Our minds are wired for protection, so they remember those pain stories in our life. And we will remember that. And we will say, "That hurt. I'm not minimizing it. It was terrible. The effects of that were horrible. But I'm going to let it go again." And as Jesus said to Peter, he gave him this story because he said, forgiveness isn't about limits, numbers. It's about a lifestyle. He said, "How often?" Every time it comes up. 70 times 7. Just keep, every time that pops up, then you let it go. You say, God, I forgive them. I let it go. And then it pops up the next day. When it comes back, say it again. So how do we begin to do this? Because, do we go to that person and tell them? Maybe that's what God wants you to go to that person and say, I'm just going to let you go and forgive that. Sometimes that's possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes that person isn't even here with us anymore. Or you're not even in a relationship with that person. This is what I did. This is what I did this week. And maybe this is a technique for you to just kind of live it out. I just imagined at the day table, I sit at my dining room table where I do my study and work, looking out in my backyard. And I imagine Jesus just sitting at the table with me. And then I imagine this person sitting across from me at the table. And I looked at them and I said, Jesus is here, and I want to just let you know that I forgive you. It hurt. It was painful. And the consequences in my life and others' lives and the things you did, I don't even want to mention them. And it's caused a lot of resentment in me the last couple years. And it's caused a lot of bitterness in me the last couple years. But I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. And this is something I do is like, what do you do when the thoughts of that person come? Jesus said, bless those that curse you. And so I said, I'm going to ask God that you bless this person. It wasn't like, I'm going to bless him. It's more like, bless him. Because I don't really love him right now. Jesus, you're working on me. But bless that person. I'm putting them in your hands, Jesus. I'm giving them to you, Jesus. They don't deserve it, but I don't deserve it. They don't deserve grace, but I don't deserve grace. And I have been forgiven, so I am going to forgive and let it go. If that's where you're at today, maybe that's what we just need to do in this moment right now is just let it go, because Jesus sees your hurt. He sees your pain. He sees how you felt stuck in this moment. And he says, I want to take you forward into freedom. And the pathway to freedom is forgiveness. Let's pray. Jesus Christ, we come before you as people that so often we struggle with forgiveness. We don't want to. And maybe there's some reasons we've held back, and often it's just the hurt and the pain and that bitterness. We have been nursing it. We have been nursing it over and over. And we've been hanging on to it. For some of us in this room, it has been years. And we have been defined more by the hurt in our past, by the healing that you want to offer us. And so today, Jesus, we're going to let it go. You know our heart, and you know our pain, and you know our struggles, and you identify with it. You don't ask us to minimize it one bit. And so we lay all of that hurt before you, Jesus. Only you can bring healing. But Lord, today we say the words to that person that we have held back forgiveness. We say, I forgive you. Not because you're asking, not because you even deserve it, because Jesus, you have forgiven me. You looked at me and said, I want to forgive you as wide as the cross. So you stretched your arms wide open and you forgave me of all of my sin. And because I am forgiven, I will offer forgiveness to this person so that I can be free. Jesus, help us to walk in that freedom this week. And may the song that we sing be the healing in our heart as we walk with you. In your name, amen. Let's stand together for this closing song, and let this song be your prayer to Jesus.
You call me strong and courageous when I don't feel like I am. You could have turned me away, but you chose me instead. You say that I'm gonna make like I can. And you see the battle I'm facing, and you're stepping in. You're in it with me, working through me, fighting for me. God is not against me. You're in it with me, working through me, fighting for